Good day, learners. This is Sir Arvin, and today I will be discussing to you on how to understand data and ways to systematically collect data. In this lesson, the objectives are the following. Chooses appropriate quantitative research design, describes sampling procedure and sample, and also discuss validity and reliability of an instrument. Are you ready for our discussion? Now let's begin. Let's discuss first the ways on how we select respondents. Now we have the population and sampling. According to Kumar in 2011, sampling is the process of selecting a few, which is the sample that constitute by the chosen ones from a bigger group or population where you choose a sample to become the basis for estimating or predicting the prevalence of an unknown piece of information, situation, or outcome regarding the bigger group. We have two classes or types of sampling method. We have probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling describes each population element that has a known or non-zero chance of being chosen. Types of probability sampling are the following: random, stratified, systematic, and cluster sampling. Another type of sampling method is the non-probability sampling, in which the probability that each element will be chosen is unknown. The types of non-probability sampling are availability, purposive, quota, and respondent-driven sampling. Now let's discuss those types of sampling method. First, let's have the first probability sampling method, which is the random sampling. When we say random sampling, this is a sampling design wherein each element in the population has an equal and independent chance of selection in the sample. For example, UCC, or our school, in the Christian colleges, may want to study the perception of stakeholders in conducting face-to-face classes next year. If there are 5,000 customers or stakeholders, it may randomly choose 100 of those stakeholders as a random sample. The researchers can use the following methods. They can have lottery method, or yung bunutan, na tawag, table of random numbers, o kaya naman, randomly generated numbers using a computer program in which the names of the students, faculty members, teachers, staff of UCC will be placed in a computer software or a website that has a free interface that can write or the names of people, and then it can be chosen by a roulette, no? And then kung sino yung 100 na mapili, for example, yun yung magiging part ng survey. Okay? I hope that is clear with everyone. So now let's proceed with the second type of probability sampling, which is the stratified sampling. So this is a probability sampling procedure in which the target population is first separated into mutually exclusive homogeneous segments. Homogeneous segments known as strata, and then a simple random sample or the random selection is selected from the segments. So for example, of the stratified sampling, when conducting research on the level of education amongst women in a community, one can identify different population groups based on ethnicity, gender, religion, and income level. And yun na yung tinatawag na homogeneous segments or yung tinatawag na strata. Okay, we can separate them into those strata: ethnicity, gender, religion, and income. Okay, so the whole idea is to preserve the homogeneity within each group so that no subset is excluded rather, no subset is excluded from the eventual sample. Okay, from those strata, no, sinabi po natin kanina, the ethnicity, gender, religion, and income, mag-random selection tayo doon. For example, sa ethnicity, there are 100 women who are binating ATAS, no? No? ATAS in a community. Okay. And sa gender, no? They are obviously women, but we can classify them into different genders. So that's why we have SOGI, right? No? So we know the difference naman between gender and sex. So we can classify them into heterosexual, no, homosexual, and etc. And then religion, Roman Catholic, Muslim, and etc. And income level from the low income to the um, higher income level, no, of those women in a community. And from those uh, categories, no, or from those segments, we are going to choose a sample, no. Pwede tayong siguro among all those population groups, kuha tayo ng 100. So, pwede natin silang hatiin into siguro 25 sa 25 na ITAS or uh, then 25 na female, the heterosexual females na in terms of gender, then 25 din na Roman Catholic if we chose Roman Catholic, and then 25 then if napili natin is the low income level. So maybe the low income level ranges from 7,000 to 12,000 income per month. So yun. So that's how stratified sampling works. So I hope that is clear with you so that we can proceed with the next one, which is the systematic sampling. When we say systematic sampling, it is a random selection and it is made of the first element for the sample. Then subsequent elements are selected using a fixed or systematic interval until the desired sample size is reached. So as you can see in the sample photo, no, pumili no ng in the population, pumili ng second person, no. And then yun yung possibly na magsasagot ng survey. But let me have a specific example so that you can understand how systematic sampling works. Okay, for example, ang researcher gusto nila magkakuha ng 100, no? respondents, and they wanted to explore the experience of customers, no, in watching movies inside cinemas during pandemic. Okay, so ang researcher to get the 100 respondents using systematic sampling, the researcher can wait outside the cinema, and survey will be given, and every second person will leaves the cinema. Okay, so that's how systematic sampling works. So now let's proceed with the last probability sampling method that we are going to discuss. And this is called the cluster sampling. This is a probability sampling procedure wherein elements of the population are randomly selected in naturally occurring groups or cluster. So meaning to say that the clusters are currently existing and you don't need to manipulate those clusters. So for example, a researcher wants to survey academic performance of senior high school students in the Philippines. So the researcher can divide the entire population of Philippines into different clusters. No, and clusters can be identified as different cities in the Philippines. No, then the researcher selects a number of clusters depending on his research through simple or systematic random sampling. Siguro he can choose two cities from Luzon, two cities from Visayas, and two cities from Mindanao. Then from the selected clusters or the randomly selected cities, the researchers can either include all the senior high school students as subjects, or maybe the researcher can select a number of subjects from each cluster through random or systematic sampling. So yan. If you have any questions, other questions, you can place it in our comment section, or you can message me at jglo@ucc.ph. Okay, so now let's proceed with the next type of sampling method, which is the non-probability sampling and its types. So now let's proceed with the first type of non-probability sampling. And we have availability sampling. Okay, so availability sampling is also called as convenience sampling. Under the sampling design, the sample elements are selected from the target population based on their availability, on the convenience of the researcher, and or they voluntarily take part in your research study. Or maybe it is a self-selection. Okay, so for example, since this is depending on the availability or convenience of the researcher, no, uh, pwedeng, example, we are in the face-to-face classes na already, and pinakita kayo mga students, no, in the classroom, and then sa tingin nyo, pwede naman na silang magsagot ng survey nyo, then pwedeng bigyan nyo sa kanila yung survey. Latag nyo sa kanila isa-isa ng survey. And you have to also explain the contents of your survey, no, so that they will understand, no, your research studies, and or what is your research study all about. Or pwede naman kayang siguro gusto nyong mag-explore ng perception ng mga tao, no, regarding their experience, no, in eating dine-in sa isang fast food restaurant. Pwedeng lahat ng mga lumalabas o pumapasok from the restaurant, pwede nyo interviewin sila. So yan, that's called availability sampling. And actually, non-probability sampling is usually used no, in qualitative researches. But you can use it in quantitative research depending on the uh, methodology of your study. So now let's proceed with the next one, which is um, what we call the purposive sampling. Okay, so this is a non-probability sampling procedure in which the elements are selected from the target population on the basis of their fit with the purposes of the study and specific inclusion and exclusion criteria. So as a researcher, you have to identify no, the qualifications of those target participants that you wanted to take part in your study. So you have to make sure that they are the ones who has an expertise, who knows the topic about what you are researching about, so that you will be able to gather data coherently, no? In which you have to define no, the inclusion and exclusion criteria so that they can take part on your study. For example, the topic is about mental health issues, and you wanted to explore the experience of those who are clinically diagnosed and the stigma that they are experiencing no, within the society. So, yon. So, syempre, you are going to look for one of the inclusion criteria that you will include are you have to make sure that they are 18 years old and above so that we will not be having problems with regards to age, no? Since minor ages require support of parents or guardian. So we also have to put on our criteria or place in our criteria that they are actually clinically diagnosed and etc. Okay? So that's how purposive sampling works. Now let's proceed with the next one. The next one is about the quota sampling. It is a type of non-probability sampling procedure in which the population is divided into manually exclusive subcategories. And researcher solicits participation in the study from the members of the subcategories until a target number of elements to sampled from the subcategories have been met. For example, no, uh, if your population consists of 35% female, 45% male, and 20% children, your sample should reflect those percentage. No? So that's how quota sampling will revolve in your study. Okay? So, example, you are targeting 100 respondents. So, kung ang population, no, example sa UCC, no, ang population dito ay 35% ang female, 45% ang male, and 20% ang children, and then sa if you are going to look for 100 respondents, then you have to choose 35 female, 45 male, and 20 children so that you can do quota sampling. Now let's proceed with the last one, okay, which is the respondent-driven sampling. In this sampling procedure, the elements are selected from the target population with the assistance of previously selected population elements. Respondent-driven sampling, or RDS, combines snowball sampling, in which snowball sampling, it's getting individuals to refer those they know, then these individuals in turn refer those they know, and so on. But here in respondent driven sampling, we're going to add mathematical model that weights the sample to compensate for the fact that the sample was collected in a non-random way. So I think that's all the types of probability and non-probability sampling. Now let's proceed with the next part of the discussion, which is about collecting data. Okay, so instrument is really important, no, in conducting researches because it is used by researchers and practitioners to gather data or measure the variables in the study. Okay, in order to create an instrument, the researchers must formulate the questions based on the objectives of the study. Okay, what type of tool and instruments are we going to use? Okay, in both research design, we are using various instruments for quantitative and qualitative research. First, let's have the qualitative researches instruments. We have interviews, group discussion, focus group discussions, observational methods, and document analysis. For the quantitative research instruments, we have dichotomous question, multiple choice questions, rank order scaling, rating scale, staple scale, constant sum question, demographic question, and checklist. So now let's discuss the most common used research instruments or data collection procedure. First, let's have the interview. So this is a qualitative research instrument where the researchers and participants interact. The interview takes place when verbal questions are asked by an interviewer to elicit verbal responses from an interviewee. Okay, the questions can contain open-ended or close-ended questions depending on how the interviewer will ask no, the uh, participant. Okay, so it depends on the scope of the study, no? Uh, and depending on how the interviewer will interview the participant also, um, because interviewer can also add follow-up questions so that the researcher can gather no, the preferred answer that they wanted to know, no? So that they can get something from the participant as well. So now let's proceed with the next one, which is the observation. Okay, this is actually commonly used in qualitative research. No, this is a research tool where the researchers make observations and record individuals' behavior. So this is usually used in ethnographic researches, no, or phenomenological researches, in which um, the researchers can immerse, no, or can enter the natural phenomena of the participants where they record where they observe no, the behavior of the people inside a particular setting. Okay? So yun, they will take notes, they will know what are the things that are happening inside their surrounding so that they can use it as part of their research data. So now let's proceed with the third one. This is used usually in quantitative researches, and this is called as a survey questionnaire. Okay, so this is a research instrument consisting of a series of questions for the purpose of gathering information from respondents. Okay? It is a set of standardized questions for gathering information from a group of individuals. Okay? So I think we are familiar with the survey questionnaire. No, it can be an open-ended or close-ended questions. No, we can use both. No, both type of questions depending on what we are going to explore in quantitative research. For example, if we are looking for the demographics, no, in terms of age, we can use multiple choice questions. No, uh, in the question part, we can use open-ended questions that has a scale. No, we can use Likert scale in that particular example. No, it depends. No, it depends on the study, but usually survey questionnaire is used. No, in quantitative research. Mm. We wanted to know the attitudes, behavior, perception, knowledge, practices of people in a particular research study that you wanted to explore. And the example picture nakikita nyo dyan, it's like a customer satisfaction survey, if they are happy with the service or not. Okay, so you can use that as, you know, as an example in conducting survey question. So now let's proceed with the next part of our discussion, in which checking the accuracy and reliability of your research questions. Okay, so now let's proceed with discussing what is validity all about. It is the degree to which an instrument measure what it intends to measure. Okay, and reliability is the consistency or stability of the instruments over time. Okay, if we differentiate those two, real, reliability is about the consistency of a measure, and validity is about the accuracy of information. In quantitative research, it is important to consider reliability and validity when you are creating your research design, planning your methods, and writing up your results. It is usually encountered when you are doing research questions. To measure the validity, no, if your uh, research questions or the survey questions are non-standardized or kung kayo mismo yung gumawa, you have to look for an expert opinions to check the validity of your research questions. No, you have to look for an expert opinions, um, expert in the field of the study that you are going to explore. No, in checking the reliability of the test questions, usually, no, before a survey questionnaire is administered to your actual respondents, its reliability index needs to be determined in order to say that the survey questionnaire you will create or adopt shall possess adequate reliability rate. So, pwede po kayong conduct ng pre-test or pilot testing ng questions. No? And then you will check the reliability of those test questions. Maybe we can use the Cronbach Alpha or the Cronbach Omega in checking the reliability of the test questions. The internal consistency of those test questions, are they related to each other or not? If not, then there may be cases that you are going to revise all the survey questions. Mm. So now let's proceed with the next one. No, in constructing the questionnaire, there are 5 phases. No, first is to review the literature. The second phase is identifying information to seek. Then the third phase is the construction of the question items. Then the fourth is re-examination and revision of questions. No, that's the validity. part, no? And then the phase 5 is the pre-testing, no? The reliability part, and editing in case that your questions are non-reliable. Okay, so now let's end this discussion with a thanks to everyone for listening. And I hope that you learned something. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, you may place it in the comment section. And if you have concerns, you may contact your respective research instructors, or you may send an email to me personally at my work email. That's jglow@ucc.ph. So thank you very much, and God bless everyone.